Hello and welcome, everyone. Just hopping on today. Wanted to share in commemoration of uh, International Day of Nonviolence. Just a bit about what nonviolence means to me. It's going to take 25 to 30 minutes of our time today because I hear a lot of misnomers and misunderstandings about nonviolence. In fact, often people ask me, why do you believe in nonviolence? What does it mean to you? Why don't you get on and do more just basic conversations or moments about it? So that's what I'm doing today. That's what I'm doing today. It's International Day of Nonviolence weekend or day. And so just want to share with you, what nonviolence means to me. How would I summarize it? I want you to share this broadcast with people because I believe this is one of those topics that piques people's interest, because sometimes we hear these statements like, this isn't your grandmother's movement. Sure isn't. My grandmothers and our four parents developed a great deal of zeal, and they had a strategy that they utilized for the nonviolent campaigns and for some of the other campaigns as well. But this is a question that I get often. What is nonviolence? So I just want to hop on and share, and then I'm going to direct you at the end of this to a way that you can learn more, just to say what it is and what it isn't. If you hear the word nonviolence, then of course automatically you may think about Dr. King or Gandhi or campaigns, movements of the 60s, 50s, 70s that utilized nonviolence as a strategy and as a philosophy. But what nonviolence is really is a way of thinking, a way of being, more specifically, particularly for me in my life, a posture and a way of demonstrating my thoughts and what I hold as the ways that I should engage. And those ways are connected to these principles that Dr. King developed, principles of nonviolence, and then steps that he developed as well, and that were added to and kind of fleshed out more by Mrs. Coretta Scott King. So it's a more than direct action. That's why I really want you to share this with people, because sometimes when we hear nonviolence, we just think protest, march, let's go do something. And we're often not thinking, what can we be with nonviolence? So I want to really stay on that for a moment, because that's the most foundational, fundamental part to me, that in nonviolence as a way of thinking and being, more specifically, again, I'll say for me at this point in my life, I'm embracing it as a way of being, because my being determines my doing and my acting, my behaving, and the ways that I relate to people, the causes that are important to me. Nonviolence influences all of that. So if you look at it, I'll give you a pathway to study more about it at the end of this brief session or a brief moment today. But I really want to say, if you look at it and you notice, there's no hyphen in it. Most times when you see nonviolence, you see a hyphen. And that pathway that I'll give you to study will share more with you about why there's no hyphen here in nonviolence. But I want to reiterate just what nonviolence means to me, what nonviolence means to me as a way to get us out there to study more, to learn more. Of course, for me, nonviolence is very much connected to my faith and my belief in Christ. I believe that it is a demonstration, a practical way of being and then doing the things that I see Christ do in Scripture, and then what's in the red letters that we often might not want to pay attention to in the Gospels, in biblical texts. Nonviolence for me is a way to actualize my faith, to do more than say I believe something and pray about something, but a way to say, okay, let's go do that. So nonviolence in being, for me, a being, also helps me to actualize my faith. And that's very much what I believe it was for Dr. King as well. But I want to connect some dots real quick. And then again, as I conclude, send us to a way that we can study. I'm looking, of course we all are, the things happening around the world. and we're trying to figure out what to do. And I think often we're trying to figure out what to do outside of us. But I want to go back real quick to that, what it isn't. Nonviolence isn't something that would cause us to look at these things happening around us and just say, let me pray about it, or let me be passive about it. I've never been more galvanized to work and to actualize what's in my being than I have been after I started to study really nonviolence and connect it to my faith and the other things that I found I believed all my life, that my grandparents taught me, that my parents taught me. And now nonviolence provides me with a way to do those things that I believe. But it is not passive. It is not antiquated. It's not something that's only connected to a movement that happened 50, 60 years ago. It will work today. And specifically, I want to tell you how it can work in us, because that's an area, right, that we don't often want to focus on. What's going to work in me? And so when we look around and we start to say, I want to change things happening around me, what needs to happen in me first? What needs to happen in me first? So nonviolence is this state of being that yields a state of doing and a state of speaking and a way of acting. So my being influences my doing and my demonstration. That's what nonviolence is to me, a way of being that influences my doing, a way of being that influences my doing. If you're hearing this and that resonated with you, man, I invite you to share that with people. A way of being that influences my doing is what nonviolence is to me and what it means to me. A way of being that's connected to my faith. For me, you can practice nonviolence if you don't share my faith or my beliefs. You can practice it. But for me, it's a way of being that influences my doing, state of being, rather, that influences my doing. And so it isn't passive. It isn't something that sits back and looks at injustice and says, let it stay that way. It isn't something that negotiates with or compromises with injustice. It isn't something that says, let's just reconcile and not get on the right path. And let's not have really true peace, which is, as Dr. King said, not just this absence of tension, but true peace includes justice. So I want to, and sometimes I talk to people about nonviolence and they say, no, we need something else because that just doesn't work. We need to respond to injustice with something else. But if you think about it, if we keep responding to injustice with injustice, if we respond to hate with hate, if we keep meeting violence with violence, then we just get more violence and more violence and more violence. So this, as I described it, state of being that influences our doing, helps us to develop, first in us, a way that we can approach those things that are happening around us. So in me, it's going to talk about me. In me, nonviolence has helped me to think about and approach and strategize around not just how I want to help with injustice or how I want to eradicate injustice, but how I want to deal with some of the things happening internally. You know, do I have bitterness in me? Then there are principles of nonviolence that would help me to address the bitterness in me. And for me, and it might not be for everyone, that's very much connected to my faith and my beliefs. It's a way of actualizing what I believe. It takes me from this place of having faith without works to this place of having faith plus works. That's very important. And we see that with the movement, the nonviolent campaigns of the 50s and the 60s, where you can actually see people in church. They had these meetings around how to deal with injustice in church basements, in churches. So today when people say Christ wouldn't care about justice, I'm like, I don't know how we get to that, because in fact, there's a way that we should, with this state of being that moves us into doing, go out and say, we will not stand for injustice. But first, it's got to get in me. It's got to get in me. There's some things that had to change in me that these principles that nonviolence helped me with. For instance, if you look at my social media 10 years ago, you see a very different way of posting and tweeting that was very much focused on commentary that could be bitter under the guise of being truthful. You know, we say keep it real. I hear that all the time as a preacher, as a young preacher, keep it real, West. And so I thought at that time that keeping it real, you know, kind of speaking it, that truth, no matter where it lands, was in fact what I should do, even on social media. You know, but I discovered that there's a way to be real that can be kind, that can be very, very truthful, but not attack people, that can share some commentary that's helpful. And this is a key thing nonviolence has helped me see when my commentary is not helpful, how to withhold it, how to think about another way to state it, how to come back again and say it in a way that will instill some hope and help people, how to speak truth in a way that gets us to justice and gets us to equity without just saying, I want to share truth, how to not offer commentary when it's just about something I don't like, how to share more about what I do like and what I do love. So in me, nonviolence with these principles started to give me an approach for even social media, for how I engage my nieces, my nephew, how to communicate with them, how to make them feel embraced and loved, even in moments when I'm busy. And again, for me, I want to reiterate, nonviolence has helped to cultivate in me a way to actualize my faith, what I say I believe. And if I'm a follower of Christ, for me, no matter what your faith is, your religion, or if you don't have one, nonviolence can work for you. It can be something you embrace. But I want to just start out sharing, of course, in me. This is what it's done. It's helped me in communication, in professionalism, in how I approach being a leader, being a pastor, because it gives me, again, a way to actualize. So a lot of times we can study even as church leaders a scripture or a text, and we know how to say it, we know how to preach it, but do we know how to actualize it? And this is key. Do we know how to connect the things that Christ said to justice, to hope, to the work that actually has to go into, you know, being for people and showing up for humanity? So in me, nonviolence has helped me to get rid of some bitterness and wrath and really some unjust, inhumane ideas for how I have to communicate and who I have to be. And it's really helped me to determine, you know, in my thinking that I don't have to be anybody but who I've been created to be. And that is someone who is willing to work for justice, but in doing that, refuses to be unjust. And so, you know, in the spaces that we deal in today, that can be difficult because a lot of the times what people count as justice is rudeness, bitterness, and what people count as being honest can lack integrity because we'll speak about each other in a way that really diminishes, where we diminish each other. So there is in nonviolence also has helped me to develop some hope. So there are principles. So people say, you know, I got nonviolence. I'm going to go out and march. I got this stuff I want to do to change what's happening around me. Well, the first place it helps me is in me. In me. How am I strategizing? What's my thinking around what's happening around me first? And how do I stop violating myself? You know, hate violates me. Have you ever been really hateful about somebody or something? I see a lot on social media, people talking about their enemies and folks who don't like them. And I'm concerned that in spending all this time thinking about people who don't like us, that we're developing in ourselves hate and dislike. So you can be on social media and you can see people who consistently are talking about, I hope my haters see this, but why do we care? And if we keep talking about hate, does it cultivate hate? So nonviolence and these principles and steps, and I'm going to tell you again how to study more about those in these principles and steps, helps me to see how to be kind in me. And it helps me to evaluate the labels that I placed on people. So if you notice how I may go a long way to say something on social media or anywhere, if you hear me speak, It's because I'm trying to avoid putting people in a box or labeling them or just saying this is who this person is and this is who they'll always be. Because when I do that, even when I label myself in some harmful ways, that determines how I treat me and how I treat other people. So nonviolence is in me and it's with me. When I say that, I don't mean that in a sense of idolizing nonviolence or the person who further developed it, Dr. King. I mean, like, really, with me is this way of thinking and approaching and evaluating that allows me to, when I encounter something and it's with me, nonviolence is, I can say, okay, how would I apply this principle? Again, there's 6 principles, 6 steps. I'll share with you how to study those as I conclude. But these principles, they help me to understand, okay, I could approach that this way, but let me come back and approach another way. And again, for me, it's an actualization of my faith and my beliefs that I have a practical way, in addition to other practical ways. I'm not in no way saying that nonviolence for me comprises all the ways that I actualize my faith, but it does provide some of the key ways. And so, as most of you know, if you know me, then you know I have a very robust history in studying scripture and studying the human condition and studying books and all manner of things. So I look at nonviolence and I say, how does it pull things together for me? It's with me. When I encounter, even in other nations, people ask me, how do we deal with this issue? Then I'm able to say, okay, let me go back to one of the steps of what do I know about this issue? What do I need to be informed about? So it's with me in processing. It's with me. I'll look at things now on Facebook, on Twitter, and things that I would have responded to years ago. I look at it and I think about my energy. I think about my timeline. I think about who I want to be as a person. And I say, I don't really want to say anything about that. I don't want to say it that way. I may want to say something, but I don't want to say it that way. And I may want to engage and help eradicate that injustice, but how do I do it without harming people? And so I want to, in the spirit of nonviolence, get rid of that problem, but I don't want to destroy people while I'm trying to get rid of the problem. That's like the opposite of what I want to do. So I have this thinking with me. It's in me, it's with me. And then I start to look at, what's happening around me. Even in the last few weeks, as I've been reading reports of governors who are transporting human beings, trafficking human beings, like cattle, taking them to other locations to make points. And they're doing that, and they're saying that they share the faith that I share. They call themselves Christians. That's not a word I use to describe myself anymore, but in essence, what they're saying is they believe they're followers of Christ, but they're treating other people in such a dismal, inhumane way. And I look at it and I say, several things. I think to myself, what is the role that I need to play in elevating what is considered the church, and what do I need to do in helping the people who are impacted by this inhumane behavior that these governors are demonstrating? And then also, policies do we need to keep that type of thing from happening? And so I think, if I'm multifaceted in my approach and I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, there's a way to use nonviolence all around me, in me, with me, all around me. There's a way that I can use nonviolence to approach, develop policies, practices, to get involved in a way that honors what I believe, but that's also strong and strategic, and that's also about love and about lifting us and getting us to live according to the capacity that we have as human beings. We're living deeply below our capacity. Nonviolence is one of the ways that I believe can help us get to living above or at that capacity. You know, we can be more than we are right now. So as someone who's a practitioner of nonviolence, I have deep faith in the future, deep faith in, and that's from Dr. King, the practitioner of nonviolence has deep faith in the future. So when I see things happening around me, nonviolence helps me to cultivate hope. And then I have this eternal hope too, because of my faith and what I believe. But I want to tell you again, no matter what your religion, if you don't have one, if you don't have a faith, I don't have a religion. I hope. So now when I hear that song, "Do You Got Good Religion?" I think, I hope not. I'm not aiming in life to have good religion. I'm aiming to be principled and to have a faith that's very much rooted and grounded in the one who I believe came for me, so that I can go with him and say, okay, let's do this together. But then I got this way to actualize now, this state of being that influences my doing and my demonstration, because nonviolence, it equips me, provides me with thinking and acting principles and steps. And in just a moment, I'm going to share with you a way that you can continue to study, but it equips me. Now I want to go back, because people are just getting in. I want to say, if you heard nonviolence is passive, it won't work today. It won't work with injustice. It won't. I'm telling you, I don't believe today that the people that I hear saying that are people who've even tried nonviolence, or they're not people who even really understand what nonviolence is enough to be able to make that assessment, because nonviolence is not something that was just for them. It is not something that causes us to sit back and just live with injustice. It just gives us a way to eradicate injustice without eradicating people. It gives us a way to address harmful, hurtful, inhumane policies and practices without trying to entangle people in policies and practices that are harmful. Because sometimes if we're not careful in the way that we try to eradicate injustice, we'll perpetuate injustice on other people. Why? Because we've boxed them in and said, this is the enemy. And so whatever they get, they deserve. Versus thinking about this, we got to live together. So nonviolence equips me with some methods and some ideas, principles, and steps on how we can live together. We don't have the option. We shouldn't think it's an option of looking around saying we don't have to live with each other. So the question is, when the injustice has been eradicated, how do we live together? And if we've eradicated injustice in a way that further perpetuates us not being able to live together, did we really eradicate injustice? So this nonviolence is equipping me to live with people, to live on this earth with people, not in a way that says I have to live with them mistreating me, but in a way that says, okay, how can we get to a different pathway? How can we change the trajectory of our world, of our families? Because nonviolence can help us in our families. Listen, haven't you met or are you a part of a family where nonviolence could be utilized, where we need a different way of thinking about marriage, about partnership, about children, about being family members, about family communication, about how to embrace each other as family? Think about that. So it can equip us even for how we engage our families. We need that. Our families, our workplaces, our communities, our schools, our legislative bodies is equipping me. It's not antiquated. It's not passive. It's not something for 50 years ago. Today, right now, today, we need a refreshed, renewed way of thinking, an approach, a method, a philosophy to help us to navigate what we're dealing with right now. I want you to study. And if anything I've said made you say, how can I be a part of, how can I learn more about what nonviolence is, how it's rooted in love, how it helps us in our families, our thinking, our social media, our posture, our character, our conduct, our communication, how can we embrace something that helps us to resist, but just to resist nonviolently? Nonviolence doesn't say do nothing. Nonviolence says do something, but do it in love and do it in a way that's strategic, that dismantles institutions and systems that are unjust without diminishing the humanity of people who perpetuated those injustices. That's a hard thing, but that's what nonviolence does. Listen, if you want to learn more about nonviolence, about what it is, I have been very fortunate and honored to be a part of developing and facilitating an online course with the King Center. So I want you to go to the KingCenterInstitute.org. And the King Center has developed a Nonviolence 365 online course that's self-paced, that's interactive. You'll see me on there as one of the trainers sharing more about nonviolence. You can learn more there about the principles, the 6 principles of nonviolence, the 6 steps, what to do with it today, because we need it. Our schools need it, our homes need it, our thinking needs nonviolence, our heart set, our mindset, how we communicate with each other, how we're going to engage on social media. How do we lift every platform, every area of our lives? Nonviolence can help us do that, regardless of your beliefs, where you come from, your background, what nation you're in. Nonviolence, I believe, is a phenomenal way, a state of being that influences our way of doing and our demonstration. So I invite you to study, learn more. Even if you're saying, I still don't believe anything she just said, you can learn more, you can think about it, you can grow in it. Go to the KingCenterInstitute.org and sign up to study, self-paced, interactive. Let's grow together. That's one of the things I encourage as a pastor to the people who I'm honored to somehow engage as a pastor, that we grow together. We all need that. We all need to develop, if we haven't already, a way to engage and a way to eradicate those things that are harmful to humanity without destroying each other. We can do that. Just want to hop on. I want to share what nonviolence means to me. I'm super grateful for you, And it is my hope for you that if you're not a student of nonviolence, that you become a student. More than that, it's my hope for you that you're hopeful, and that the things that you're seeing around you, the things happening in your life, that there's a light and a love and a pathway out and a way, and you see it and you go with it, and that we realize as human beings that the way we're living, we don't have to live this way. And we can, as we got ourselves into this, get ourselves out. It'll take a while, but we can do it. It's what nonviolence means to me. Thank you so much for joining. I encourage you, if you would, please do me a favor, share this broadcast. It's on YouTube. Grab the link and share it with people and encourage them to not turn on something that we actually might not even have heard the right things about, but have heard incorrect information. Learn what nonviolence is, and learn if it's something that you can utilize to look at your schools, your community, your local government, things that are happening around this nation and around this world and in our homes and our workplaces. And let's be solutions. Let's raise the standard. Let's lift our thinking. Let's love deeply, think higher, and let's go. Let's go. It's what nonviolence means to me.